Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca and welcome back to this week's episode of TJLC Explained. This week I'm going to be talking about sexual imagery and sexual innuendos in Sherlock, so if that isn't your glass of tea, I suggest clicking off now. Also, younger people ask an adult or something, I guess? Speaking of adults, my parents told me they might start watching these videos, so Mom, Dad, if you're watching this one, just maybe don't. Sorry, I'd love you. So if you're still here, I'm assuming we're good to go. So while I may love sexual innuendos just for their own sake, and trust me, I do, I'm not talking about them just so I can get a few giggles in. The amount of sexual content that has been placed in the background of the show is frankly ridiculous. And most of the time it isn't even blatant enough for it to be a joke for the casual audience. Instead, they put it in there for us, so we know what's going on. Also, I'm pretty sure they're going to be calling back to some of these after their relationship happens, just so we can all know what happened the night before. The amount and context of the sexual subtext of the show should convince you that John and Sherlock are queer and attracted to each other. Because once in a while, a cigar might just be a cigar, and when a man only does one or two queer things, there might be a meaning in it, but when everything he does is queer, then you begin to wonder. Also, I'm low-key gonna try to prove to you that Sherlock is a bottom, but hey! One thing at a time. I spent a while debating with myself how to structure this, because there are a few obvious groups I could do, but ultimately I just decided to follow the sequence of episodes. That way you can get a sense for the progression of the sexual subtext over the course of the series, because it definitely gets more blatant later on. Yeah, trust me. I'll get to that. I have a lot of stuff to talk about here, so while there are a lot of gay moments in the pilot, I'm gonna limit myself to 3 for time's sake. So my top 3 favorite am I watching a softcore porno right now moments of the unaired pilot are 3,
Billion lives.
Sure.
2, and 1. I hope you enjoyed the blatancy there because it'll be a while until we get back to that. Okay, on to the actual series. The first time we see Sherlock, his upside down face is revealed with the zipper sound effect. The writers have said that it was very important to them that this be the first time Sherlock's face was revealed, so much so that they concealed it in the opening credits, because they wanted to introduce Sherlock with an inverted shot. Invert was one of the terms used for gay people in the Victorian era. The pants fly zipper sound effect isn't doing anything to dispel the gay imagery. Neither is the fact that he whips out a riding crop.
We'll start with the riding crop.
And that's just the first scene. This is to say nothing of the fact that Sherlock mentions his riding crop to John.
Sorry, got a dash. I think I left my riding crop in the mortuary.
Seriously, why mention this if not to reference sex? And winks at him before leaving. Let's move on to the first time Sherlock invites John on a case. We already know this scene is filled with intense eye contact, and it ends with John enthusiastically agreeing that he needs more action.
Want to see some more?
Oh, God, yes.
At the first crime scene, Sherlock points out the sexual relationship between Anderson and Donovan when they won't leave him alone.
I'm not implying anything. I'm sure Sally came round for a nice little chat and just happened to stay over. And I assume she scrubbed your floors, going by the state of her knees.
This line is going to come back later. Sherlock's first breakthrough is accompanied by enthusiastic vocalizations. Why would they possibly do that? And where would we be without the nicotine orgasm? Pipes and cigarettes are symbolic stand-ins for sex, or rather a particular sexual action, and following that logic, Sherlock's dependence on nicotine patches is his attempt to overcome those needs using a substitute. Alone. On the sofa. The cases are another substitute. He does everything he can to distract himself from his bodily urges. But of course, with John on the case, the line gets a bit blurry, especially when they're giggly and breathless in the streets of London.
What?
Nothing, just welcome to London.
Got your breath back?
Ready when you are.
After 2 rounds, John and Sherlock collapse on the wall near the stairs to 221B. I've mentioned before that this scene is framed like a standard post-coital above the bed shot, and it's not by accident it's in the stairways. Stairs symbolize sexual intercourse.
That was ridiculous. That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever done.
And you invaded Afghanistan.
That wasn't just me. Why aren't we back in the restaurant?
They could keep an eye out.
One last thing before I move on from this episode. Guns are a phallic symbol, especially in this show, so I really enjoy the fact that John makes sure he has his gun on hand before he rejoins Sherlock at Baker Street. So the next episode heavily features a building called the Gherkin, which several people have told me looks particularly phallic, or like a butt plug. I'll let you decide. The Gherkin is also displayed in the opening credits, so there's that. Remember in my last video in the Blind Banker when I talked about Sherlock obviously winding John up, hoping he would snap? Well, another detail that supports this is Sherlock getting into a sword fight while John is gone. Desperately trying to hide his sword from John when he comes back. Only the sword left a mess on the table that Sherlock hadn't gotten around to cleaning yet. Listen, he's gay. And we know from the last episode that the show isn't beyond blowjob jokes, so this next bit is intentional. Yeah. In the last episode, I pointed out John licking his lips and looking at Sherlock while he was on his date with Sarah. What I failed to mention, because I hadn't noticed it, is the shot that happens just before that. John sees that imagery of a spear slowly being loaded in, quickly glances at Sarah before turning to stare at Sherlock, and then barely glances at Sarah before turning back around to stare at the spear. He obviously feels like he's supposed to be thinking about Sarah in this moment, but it's clear his mind is somewhere else. Sherlock knows it too, going by his smile. Anyway, remember what I said about guns being phallic? Well, in the next episode, Sherlock's lounging in his pajamas, firing John's gun at the wall. Yeah. In the context of the scene, Sherlock is frustrated about what John said about him on his blog, and is epically sulking, even though he desperately wants a different outlet for his frustration. His drop ends with a literal explosion, and a transition over to the next scene with John's groan. Both of them are sore and unsatisfied. This is the episode where Jim Moriarty actually makes an appearance. How does he try to get Sherlock's attention? By coming on to him.
Hey. Sorry. Well, I'd better be off. I'll see you at the Fox. About 6-ish?
Yeah.
Bye. It was nice to meet you. You too.
Why would Moriarty think Sherlock would be interested in a gay man? Why would Sherlock, who in this very same episode admitted that he doesn't keep information that isn't useful to him, bother to keep track of gay underwear trends? What could it mean?
Those tired grabber's eyes.
Then there's his underwear.
His underwear?
Visible above the waistline, very visible, very particular brand.
Moriarty makes it clear later that the underwear was all for Sherlock.
I have loved this little game of ours, playing Jim from IT, playing gay. Did you like the little touch with the underwear?
Like Futchcassidy pointed out, his biggest mistake was assuming Sherlock was a top. He's not. Several people pointed me to the graffiti in the homeless tunnels, which they say looks very phallic, and again, I'll let you decide.
No! It took us weeks to find him again.
In the same scene, John finds himself wishing he had brought his gun, only to discover that Sherlock was way ahead of him.
Oh, shit.
What?
I wish I'd...
Don't mention it.
They're so distracted over John's gun that they let the golem escape. In the fourth pip, we get another deduction that contains sexual cues both for Sherlock and for John.
Oh, shit.
The connection of guns as phallic objects is made explicit in the pool scene if it wasn't already obvious.
Is that a British Army Browning L9A1 in your pocket? Or are you just pleased to see me?
Both.
This episode was the first to be written and filmed, so this connection has been in their minds the entire time. Also, before anyone goes all Moriarty panic on me, remember that's John's gun in Sherlock's pocket. Moriarty and Sherlock's interests aren't compatible on so many levels, but Moriarty realizes at least one of them now and has changed his tactics a bit.
But the flirting's over, Sherlock. Daddy's had enough now.
He realized the other approach wasn't going to work when he met John, so now he's trying to be a top. In the same scene, we get the infamous blowjob shot, where both the position of the characters and John's face make it pretty clear that that's the connection they wanted the audience to make.
All right. Are you all right?
I wonder what the state of Sherlock's knees was after that. Now, Irene's introduction mirrors Sherlock's. She's introduced by interacting with someone else's phone, and then whips someone with a riding crop.
Well now, have you been wicked, Your Highness?
Yes, Miss Adler. They could have easily made Irene's client male, but they didn't. I wonder why. Maybe they're trying to tell something about Sherlock. I don't know. I'm just making a video. I do know. It's because Sherlock is gay. That's why. Okay. This next one requires me to talk about the blogs for a second. Between the events of The Great Game and A Scandal in Belgravia, John and Sarah go on a trip to New Zealand and break up shortly thereafter. To quote John's blog, this trip made him realize that his life with Sherlock isn't compatible with long-term relationships. There's a lot going on here. It's pretty safe to assume, though, that John and Sarah finally tried to have sex, only for John not to be able to perform and or say Sherlock's name during sex. This relates to the next moment on my list, the hiker in the backfiring car. The car won't start properly, makes an unexpected noise, and ends in someone recently returning from foreign travels being hurt.
The car backfires and the hiker turns to look. Which was his big mistake. By the time the driver looks up, the hiker's already dead. What he doesn't see is what killed him, because it's already being washed downstream. An accomplished sportsman recently returned from foreign travel with a boomerang.
Remember, they went to New Zealand. It's pretty close. I'm not done with parallels yet. John is confronted with two scantily clad people on the same day. He stands his ground against one, but freely looks at the other. Guess which is which?
Don't think John knows where to look.
No, I think he knows exactly where.
You wearing any pants?
No.
Okay.
Irene, who makes a living on knowing what people like, picks up on it.
There's a back door. Better check it, Dr. Watson.
Sure.
John's the one checking someone else's back door. So I'm saying. He does check it later, too.
No. Back to bed. You'll be fine in the morning. Just sleep.
Of course I'll be fine. I am fine.
And now that I'm thinking about it, the framing of the scene where John and Sherlock are fighting seems to lean this way, too.
Okay. I think we're done now, John.
You want to remember, Sherlock, I was a soldier. I killed people.
You were a doctor.
I had bad days.
You construct intricate rituals which allow you to touch the skin of other men. John also forcefully reminds Sherlock that he was in the army in this scene, which is definitely intentional. More on that later. The Hound of Baskerville starts off with Sherlock and another frustrated strop. This time around, they've decided to further up the symbolism. Sorry.
When's the next one?
Sherlock's desperately craving cigarettes.
Nothing of importance. Oh, God! John, I need some. Get me some.
And is prancing around, frantically rubbing at his harpoon.
Nothing.
Military coup in Uganda.
I know, bud. Just, like I said, go rub one out. It'll be fine. A bit later, John and Sherlock break into a military base, and the show makes it pretty clear that Sherlock has an interest in military men. Officers!
It's just we don't get inspected here, you see, sir. It just doesn't happen.
Ever heard of a spot check? Captain John Watson, 5th Northumberland Fusiliers.
Sir, Major Barrymore won't be pleased, sir. He'll want to see you both.
I'm afraid we won't have time for that. We'll need a full tour right away. Carry on. That's an order, Corporal.
Yes, sir.
Nice touch.
Haven't pulled rank in ages.
Enjoy it?
Oh, yeah.
Boys, calm down. You're in public. But Sherlock was keyed up before they got there, and seeing John in Captain Watson mode and being dosed with something isn't helping him keep a handle on things. His body starts betraying him.
Always been able to keep myself distant. Divorce myself from feelings. But look, you see, body's betraying me. Interesting, yes. Emotions. Grit on the lens, the fly in the ointment.
It makes me wonder what would have happened if they had shared the bed that night. The sexual subtext is toned down a lot in the Reichenbach Fall, but they still managed to squeeze in Moriarty coming on to Sherlock over tea.
In a world of locked rooms, the man with the key is king. And honey, you should see me in a crown.
You were advertising all the way through the trial. You were showing the world what you can do.
And you were helping. Big client list, rogue governments, intelligence communities, terrorist cells. They all want me. Suddenly, I'm Mr. Sex.
You can break any bank. What do you care about the highest bidder?
I don't. I just like to watch them all competing. Daddy loves me the best. Aren't ordinary people adorable?
Still trying that daddy angle. Jeez. Also later on we get Moriarty, who is demonstrably proven to be gay at this point, sticking a loaded gun in his mouth.
Well, good luck with that.
Boy, oh boy, does this come back later. In season 3, there was a dramatic increase in the blatancy of the subtext. It was the first thing a lot of people noticed. It had finally reached unaired pilot levels again. John is headed back to Baker Street to say his final goodbyes to his life with Sherlock and his feelings to him before proposing to his girlfriend, and he goes there by train, which the show draws a lot of attention to. Trains in tunnels. If you thought me doing that was bad, the show does it for me.
Made his position quite clear.
Just relax, Mr. Summerson.
What did he say?
Cough?
Completely unnecessary. But then again, maybe he's trying to tell us something. Like John's the one doing the penetrating. And this is only a few minutes after this shot.
I'm just passing the time.
Complimentary. That's all I'm saying. Sorry. And I'll stop doing the gesture. Sorry. There's this whole subplot with John's mustache where Sherlock sees a picture with him with it and wonders what it would feel like against his lips.
Well, we'll have to get rid of that. Where's it going to be tonight?
How would I know?
You always know.
He has a dinner reservation in the Marylebone Road. Nice little spot. They have a few bottles of the 2000 Saint-Emilion, though I prefer the 2001.
I think maybe I'll just drop by.
John shaves it off as soon as it's clear that Sherlock doesn't like it.
What are you doing?
Having a wash?
You're shaving it off.
Well, you hate it.
Sherlock hates it.
Apparently everyone hates it.
Are you going to see him again?
No, I'm going to work.
Oh, and after work, are you going to see him again? God, I don't know, 6 months of bristly kisses for me, and then his nibs turns up.
I don't shave for Sherlock Holmes.
You should put that on a T-shirt.
And Sherlock compliments John on how he looks without it.
So you shaved it off then?
Yeah, wasn't working for me.
Yeah, I'm glad.
We didn't like it?
I prefer my doctor's clean shaven.
It's not a sentence you hear every day.
No, it isn't. Leaving aside the whole beard connotations, one of John's lines here should be particularly familiar.
What happened to the lipstick?
It wasn't working for me.
Really? I thought it was a big improvement. Mouth's too small now.
Wasn't working for me.
Yeah, I'm glad.
It's definitely to do with sex. In this episode, we get another instance of Sherlock making inappropriate noises at his deductions, and in a train tunnel, no less.
Oh!
We also get more of Sherlock on his knees and John calling him a cock.
You!
Your face!
Utter!
Your face!
You!
Totally had you.
You cock! I knew it! I knew it! You...
And now we get to the sign of 3, and I really cannot overstate how much this episode changed everything. A large part of that was the sexual subtext. There's a lot of it, and it's pretty in your face about it. I mean, the entire concept of the straight wedding being dedicated to Sherlock's best man speech to John was already pretty blatant, but then you get to the content of the cases. Sherlock mentions a few in passing before getting to the really blatant one.
And of course, I have to mention the elephant in the room.
No, not that one. Not that one's for later. I'll be getting back to that. I mean the one where John and Sherlock sneak into a military base. Again. Because of course they do.
Uniform fetishist. All the nice girls like a soldier.
It's sailor.
Sherlock, I mean, if that's not a Freudian slip. Sherlock is clearly attracted to soldiers. I mean, he's practically in a state of shock wondering how they avoid touching their own butts.
Do you think they give them classes?
Classes.
How to resist the temptation to scratch their behinds?
Afferent neurons in the peripheral nervous system. Bummage.
Oh.
Yeah, this is happening. This is all happening. He also sneaks in alone and starts peeking into rooms for no other reason than to get an eyeful, because he already knows that the client is still outside. Sherlock. Why is this like this? Why is it like this? It's not my fault. You can't blame me. John also confidently teaches Sherlock how to touch a naked man's body.
What do we do?
Then give him a scarf.
What?
Quickly, now. Call an ambulance.
What?
Call an ambulance now. Do it! Nurse, press here, hard.
Nurse?
Yeah, I'm making do. Keep pressure on that wound. Stephen, stay with me.
There's also Tom's lovely suggestion of what might have killed the soldier.
Attempted suicide with a blade made of compacted blood and bone. Broke after piercing his abdomen, like a meat dagger.
Meat dagger.
A meat dagger. That happened. That happened. Sometimes a meat dagger. Anyway, Sherlock doesn't just talk about his raging attraction to all soldiers generally and to John specifically. He also talks about the Stag Night. Before the night itself, Sherlock gets advice from Molly for how much they should drink. Sitting in his folder is a pretty incriminating document.
Urinating in wardrobes, bad.
Yes, that picture of John's head pasted onto the Vitruvian man's body is real. Sherlock did it himself. And if you didn't know, the Vitruvian man has the ideal body. Sherlock thinks John has the ideal body. Okay, this too much. Like I mentioned in the episode on the drink code, Sherlock and John drink their beer out of graduated cylinders, which was, you know, an interesting choice, especially with Sherlock delicately dabbing at his mouth. Weren't there some promo pictures with these two? Yep, those are the ones. Those are the... Yeah, that's pretty gay. They head back to Baker Street and spoon on the sex stairs.
Do you have an international reputation?
No, I don't have an international reputation.
No. And I can't even remember what for. Crime. Something or other.
Upstairs, John grabs Sherlock's knee in a move that should look familiar.
I don't mind.
Also, their legs are just dancing around each other like they're begging to just straddle. I hate this. I hate the scene.
I'm nice-ish, clever, important to some people.
They're interrupted by a woman named Tessa bringing a case about a failed relationship opportunity. The story strikes a chord with both John and Sherlock.
To be honest, I'd love to have gone further, but I thought, no, this is special.
Had to pull your hand away just then, didn't you? Yeah, I know. Also, John drifts off after hearing that bit, and the first thing he says when he wakes up...
Yeah, I'm there if you want it.
Just no other interpretation for that. That's sexual. He's there for it. They go to the dead guy's apartment, and a lot happens in a short amount of time. They open the scene with a rimming shot. Ask your parents. Don't ask your parents. Don't Google it or something. I don't know. Sherlock talks about whipping things out.
Just gonna whip this out.
And tries to look for some clues. Now there's more butts, bottom. What was that? The scene is crowned off with Sherlock on his knees, dabbing something that definitely doesn't have the consistency of throw up from his mouth before the scene transitions into John's mouth. People spent hours doing that. It didn't just happen. I know a little bit about video editing. They spent a long time to make sure that looked like that. And then they shared it with the producers who were like, yes, good, that's exactly what we wanted. What is this show? Why am I watching this? Anyway, that's about it for the sexual subtext of this episode, apart from Sherlock turning down a naked Irene, again.
Out of my head, I am busy.
And a flashback to Sherlock prancing around with an entire pack of cigarettes stuffed in his mouth.
John H. Watson?
Yep.
Why so many? Well, actually, getting to the next episode, we know why so many. John goes into a drug den with a tire lever stuffed in his pants. Understandably, this might make him walk a little bit funny. You know, having something that obtrusive hanging in between your legs. Apparently, though, it's nothing new.
And I further deduce you've only started recently because you've got a bit of chafing.
No, he's always walked like that.
I'm literally just explaining the show to you. I didn't choose to make this happen. I didn't want them to tell us that John is well endowed. This isn't my fault. I'm just the messenger. Blame Mark and Stephen. That's not the only fun thing that Tyrell ever brings. Mary tries to compliment him on how attractive it is that he's being all badass and stuff, only to have him walk away.
Hey, John. Is a tiny bit sexy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he flirts with a man over it with no prompting whatsoever.
Okay, and doesn't mean I'm not pleased to see you.
Such a happy marriage. Cam's on-screen records of people are quite revealing, particularly the porn preference section. Both Lady Smallwood and Mrs. Hudson have their porn preference set to none,
Policy.
while Sherlock and John both have it set to normal.
No longer have any practical use to you, so with that in mind...
First, before you say anything, I know that in real life some asexual people do watch porn, but this is a TV show, and every detail matters. They wouldn't include this detail if it wasn't meant to tell us something, specifically to make it clear that Sherlock does have a sex drive and that he indulges in his urges. Secondly, gay is normal. Finally, we end up with The Abominable Bride, which takes the subtext to a whole new level. I can show you the world, gun blowjobs, and other things. Before I get into the special, let me just draw your attention to this promotional image, which seems to exist just to remind everyone that John has it going on downstairs. Anyway, most of this episode takes place in Sherlock's head, so we finally get an inside look at all of those desires he's always been trying to desperately repress. Since day one, apparently, since in his reimagining of events, the first thing Sherlock does when he meets John is to throw him his cane.
You've been in Afghanistan, I perceive.
Dr. Watson, Mr. Sherlock.
Excellent reflexes. You'll do.
Oh god, this is gonna be too much. I can feel it. The entire case requires Sherlock to go deep.
I shall have to go deep.
Deep into what?
Myself.
Remember how in the last video I said that Sherlock wants John to be bossy and take charge? Yeah, I wasn't exaggerating.
Holmes, you have misdiagnosed.
Then correct me, Doctor.
Also, do I have to point out the pipe in his hand, or... A bit later, Sherlock wants to make sure John has brought his gun with him.
God, yes. Did you bring a revolver?
What good would that be against a ghost?
Exactly. Did you bring it? Of course. And come, Watson. Come.
I'm reaching the threshold, guys. It's too much. Not even to the worst of it yet. So you remember that bit in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes that I've mentioned a few times where John confronts Sherlock about his past experiences? Yeah, we get that here too. Thankfully, unlike in that film, John isn't a raging homophobe and seems interested for a different reason entirely. First though, remember that state of her knees thing?
You know, it's rare for us to sit together like this.
I should hope so. It's murder on the knees.
John seems excited at the chance to sit alone with Sherlock in the dark.
Two old friends just talking, chewing the fat. Man to man.
Man to man! This is a conversation that Sherlock wants John to force them to have again. Otherwise, he wouldn't be imagining it this way here.
You're a living, breathing man. You've lived a life. You have a past.
What?
Well, you must have had...
Had what?
You know.
No.
Experiences.
Pass me your revolver. I have a sudden need to use it.
Damn it, Holmes, you are flesh and blood. You have feelings. You must have impulses.
He wants John to know that his unfeeling facade is a lie, that he has a heart, that he's flesh and blood, that he has impulses. Those are very clear word choices. And yes, he did just ask to borrow John's gun. They're interrupted by a ghost before Sherlock can give a clear answer, but honestly, this setup gives us all we needed. Of course, then we get the big one. Sherlock and Moriarty in 221B. Moriarty comes in with this line.
It's a dangerous habit to finger loaded firearms in the pocket of one's dressing gown. Or are you just pleased to see me?
That's a masturbation joke. That's a masturbation joke. Okay. In Sherlock's mind, Moriarty is even more aggressively sexual towards him, coming on stronger than ever.
I like your rooms. They smell so manly.
I'm sure you acquainted yourself with them before now.
Well, you are always away on your little adventures for the Strand. Tell me, does the illustrator travel with you? Do you have to pose during your deductions?
I'm aware of all 6 occasions you have visited these apartments during my absence.
I know you are. By the way, you have a surprisingly comfortable bed. Did you know that dust is largely composed of human skin?
Yes.
He's playing with his gun, too. They have a small standoff where they point their guns at each other before drawing away again.
Do you mind if I fire this? Just to clean it out.
Again, nobody here should be Moriarty panicking. Moriarty isn't just himself here. He's always been Sherlock's foil, and in Sherlock's mind, he represents all the worst, darkest things about himself. The things he's afraid of. The things he tries to lock away, just like he did in his last vow. And that part of himself that he locks away is aggressively, blatantly, flamboyantly gay. And that part of Sherlock calls him out on the only thing he cares about.
Doesn't matter. Stop it. Stop this. You don't care about Sir Eustace or the bride or any of it. There's only one thing in this whole business that you find interesting.
There was one feature, and only one feature, of interest in the whole of this baffling case, and quite frankly, it was the usual. John Watson.
So Sherlock's confrontation here is with himself, with his own sexuality. It's especially clear in the lines where they mouth the words together.
It's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue.
That's why everything is all shaky and intense, and why Sherlock accuses Moriarty of distracting him, even though on the surface he's talking about the same case Sherlock is supposedly trying to solve.
I know what you're doing.
The bride put a gun in her mouth and shot the back of her head off, and then she came back. Impossible. But she did it. And you need to know how. How? Don't you? It's tearing your world apart not knowing.
You're trying to stop me. To distract me, derail me.
Because doesn't this remind you of another case?
Moriarty won't stop distracting him, though.
It's on the tip.
I mean, time out for a sec. Can you believe that just happened and people still don't believe this show is gay? Like, what more is going to, like, honestly, they're gonna kiss, and there are gonna be people out there like, wait, are they gay? And then there are gonna be people like, no, oh, it's so nice how friends can kiss each other. Like, I'm telling you, they're gonna gal pal it. They're gonna freaking, oh god, okay, I'm sorry, I worked myself up, I got angry. I'm gonna come back to the video. Sorry, rant over. It's understandable that Sherlock doesn't want to indulge because he thinks that doing so could be dangerous, even deadly.
For the sake of Mrs. Hudson's wallpaper, I must remind you that one false move with your finger and you will be dead. I'm sorry.
Dead.
It's the new sexy.
Well, I'll tell you what, that rather blows the cobwebs away.
How can you be alive?
Sherlock reminds himself that it isn't the fall that's deadly, it's the landing. He needs something solid to catch him.
Why aren't you dead?
Because it's not the fall that kills you, Sherlock. Of all people, you should know that. It's not the fall. It's never the fall. It's the landing.
Not now! I'm getting to you in 2 weeks. Wait your turn! Freaking elephants, man. Just BBC Three and Arwell Jones were throwing off my whole schedule, trying to butt in on this video. Both this line about surviving falls and Moriarty being so blatantly gay play a pretty big role in the cliff scene later on, which, if you follow me, you know it's my favorites. You already know. But it doesn't really apply here, and I'm saving it up for something special, so I'll be back to talk about that another day. Instead, we'll go to Sherlock waking up, or actually waking up, I don't know, don't ask, it's confusing, and realizing that maybe avoiding intimacy isn't necessary.
And abstinence is not immortality.
It's good, Sherlock, I'm proud of you. John's characterization is all over the place for the rest of this episode, but Sherlock does give himself a moment to indulge in his fascination of John's twin professions.
I should be inclined to stop you.
Then you would be reminded, quite forcibly, which of us is a soldier and which of us a drug addict.
You're not a soldier, you are a doctor.
I'm an army doctor, which means I could break every bone in your body while naming them.
My dear Watson.
Wowza. Like I said, Sherlock comes to terms with his feelings in the cliff scene, and we end off the episode and the series so far with John and Sherlock back in Baker Street, engaging in some good old symbolic 69.
What sort of lunatic fantasy is that?
It was simply my conjecture of what a future world might look like and how you and I might fit inside it. From a drop of water, a logician should be able to infer the possibility of an Atlantic or a Niagara.
Or a Reichenbach.
Have you written up your account of the case?
Yes.
Modified to put it down as one of my rare failures, of course.
Of course.
The adventure of the Invisible Army. The League of Furies? The Monstrous Regiment?
I rather thought The Abominable Bride.
Trifle lurid.
It'll sell. It's got proper murders in it, too.
You're the expert?
As for your own tale, are you sure it's still just a 7% solution that you take? I think you may have increased the dosage.
Perhaps I was being a little fanciful.
Ceci n'a pas un pipe. Sherlock looks out the window and looks forward to a future where his relationship with John and what they do together doesn't have to stay hidden in symbolism and subtext. Me too, bud. Me too.
But perhaps such things could come to pass. In any case, I know I would be very much at home in such a world.
Don't think I would be.
I beg to differ. But then I've always known I was a man out of his time.
Thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. If you follow me on Tumblr, you already know that I asked for some help coming up with a list of everyone's favorite sexual symbolism in the show, and that post kind of took off, so I have a lot of people to thank. This isn't everyone who added, but these are the people who reminded me of scenes I had forgotten or introduced me to new ones. So thank you to Inevitably Johnlocked, A Bit Not Good, No Goldfish Required, Shinka, Moki, Linny Ginny Joan, 2 Confirmed Bachelors, Sherlo, Of Cowardice and Kings, Johnlock, The John Tent, All the Holmes and John, The Mimicat, Lavellington, Johnlock, trademark, Nimlock, Captain John Watson, and Kinklock. You can find my original post and scroll through all the additions linked in the description below. I also reference posts made by Hamish the Ideal Husband, No Goldfish Required, and Futchcassidy, so thank you to them as well. You can find all of those posts linked in the description below. Thank you as always to Martin Freeman. Seriously though, I forgot to write my script, so you reminded me to work on that, so thank you. You did help. I know you think you didn't, but you did. Next week, I'll be covering The Great Game, and after that, there's something very obvious that needs to be addressed. So I hope you're looking forward to those future videos, and until then, get ready to believe. Get ready to believe that Sherlock is a bottom, am I right?